Good morning and welcome to One More Thing. It is my joy to be here today. I'm Larry Baucom, the pastor of Suncoast, with the teaching pastor, Dr. Troy Doucet. And this weekend was amazing. We're with the theme, Summer at the Lake. And as we were at that theme, as you were working on the teaching for this weekend, I was in North Carolina having summer at the lake. So the irony is I come back and I thought you knocked the ball out of the park this weekend. I loved everything that you did in the teaching time.
Thanks.
Dynamic. But if you were to say, for you, what were the fun things this weekend that you experienced as you taught?
Yeah, when we put together a plan to develop the teaching, one of the things that had come up was from the teaching itself, how these young Jewish boys just had a brilliant memory about learning the 5 books of the Bible, the first Torah, the Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And I thought it would be interesting because every time I tell someone that fact about history, their mind's blown like, wow, how do they do that? And I go, well, you have that capacity too. And so we use the Kahoot game to show these Jewish boys put it to memory by music. They memorized it rhythmically with the rhythmic patterns. And so we played a little Kahoot game where we gave away some prizes from our cafe, man. And we were kind of nervous, like if anyone's going to play, and then they showed up in droves. And so we maxed out our participant, capacity. And it was just a good vibe, man, in the room. People were excited. People were, as music was playing, you could see their heads moving, like they recognized the songs.
So what is Kahoot? I mean, you say Kahoot, but what is that?
So Kahoot's like a learning platform that I used even as a professor, where you can upload questions, surveys, and images, sounds. And what you're doing is you're quizzing people, you add questions, and it's interactive through their cell phone. And so they log in, they put in the PIN number, so you have to have a PIN number to access that particular game you've created. And you answer questions. And so we just made these questions a little bit more fun to have more audience participation, interaction, a little more dynamic, vibe in the room. But it went over really well, man. People were talking about it, and it fit really good with the sermon as well. So
yeah, I thought it was well done. It was fun. I do think the choice of music, was definitely not in my era. The only thing I got was the Eagles.
Yeah.
The Stairway to Heaven. I mean, is that right? Yeah.
Hotel California.
Hotel California.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That was Led Zeppelin. Stairway to Heaven.
That's right.
So those are the era that I would have used.
Yeah,
A little Beatles stuff, a little Led Zeppelin, but not Alice Cooper. That's a different area. But that's teenage stuff.
That's right.
But I thought it was well done. I saw people engaged. They were vibrant about it. They came out smiling. I thought you just handled the teaching. And the teaching basically at Summer at the Lake, what was the passage you were trying to drill home?
Yeah, so it came from Matthew 4, and that's Jesus' original calling of the first disciples, which takes place at a lake. And that's the whole driving point, is the encounters with Christ at the lake, Summer at the Lake. So this was the initial calling of the disciples. And a lot of people read that very simplistic text, follow me. And they dropped their nets and followed him. And we've culturized Jesus to the point where we go, of course we're going to follow him. He's Jesus. But it wasn't as simple as that in the historical context. So what we tried to do is give some backgrounding of that to kind of what's happening in the foreground. That's simple, but there is a historical and a very complex and nuanced Jewish history that we brought to life. And I think it really encouraged people, because we saw Jesus's criteria for choosing his disciples was not the same as his predecessors, the rabbis who came before him. He wasn't looking for the best of the best who had knowledge. He was looking for those who he believed in, that you can do what I can do. You can become like me.
Right. Well, so interesting. You described Jesus in this typical American way.
Yeah.
Give us that brief description again.
Yeah, I said, we've all seen the encounter by these Christian movies, and Jesus comes, he's walking down the beach, and he's got his blue beauty pageant sash across his chest, and his hair looks like it's just been recently blow dried, and he's got blue eyes, and a hypnotizing voice, and that's just not actually like relevant or or real to that moment. I said he looked more Swedish, and we have than Jewish. And what's funny, we have a pastor at our church who's a retired pastor from Sweden.
That's right.
And he came running up to me at the end of the service, and he goes, "I am the Swedish. I'm the Swedish."
Yeah.
And he goes, "But Jesus doesn't look like me."
No.
He goes, "I want to look like him." And I went, "Man, that's it. That was it." And so it was a good little conversation.
Yeah, I had the similar conversation with him. Kenneth is his name.
Kenneth, that's right.
Yeah, but I thought it was ironic when you were saying that. I could see him in the crowd, and I thought, "Oh boy, he's going to really love that." And he did.
He loved it.
He comes here for 2 or 3 months, and Suncoast is his home while he's here. But I thought you resonated very well with that.
That was good.
And the disciples follow me. So who were those initial disciples that were to follow him?
So first were Peter, Simon called Peter, and Andrew, brothers. And it's a beautiful story because he encounters James and John later, who are fishing as well, but they're with their dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get this imagery. If you don't know that historical backgrounding context, you just kind of think they're just fishermen, which is what guys do in that neck of the woods. But Peter and Andrew are fishing, which means that they're not following a rabbi, which means if you know the story, they're not the best of the best.
Right.
And Jesus calls them, and they drop their nets right away. Now, there's some belief, and I think you might hold to it too, that like Jesus was already teaching around that area. So it wouldn't have been like a cold call for them.
Right.
Like they would have recognized Jesus not only as Jesus, but as a rabbi because of his garment. And they would have probably heard about him and had some understanding of who he was.
You know, Sweden is big, I think, in sports, and maybe Jesus was on the Swedish soccer team.
That's
with Andrew.
Could be, man.
You just never know.
Yeah.
So when he comes around, I think there was some familiarity.
Had to be.
When he walked up to them and say, "Guys, we've been having a conversation for a long time, but it's time.
That's right.
Now follow me." And I love the part that you segued to. The traditional church sometimes describes Jesus as, "Hey, here he comes, the Son of God, and believe in me, worship me," and they forget, emulate me.
That's right.
So why do you think that's so important? I mean, why do you think the church needs to shift that way?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the points I made was there's a huge difference between change and transformation. We sort of intermingle those words, but they're very, very different words. They're absolute different meanings. Change was all about like I'm removing or replacing something for something else, like a completely new thing. Whereas I think the call to follow Jesus is not to like remove or replace old ideas, but to transform them, right? I can still keep this idea of Christ as being the ideal, but transform those beliefs that are more historically, theologically, philosophically accurate. And that's where I made the point, I don't call myself a Christian anymore. I just don't use that term. It's been politicized, it's been culturized, and therefore it's been minimized to what its authentic self was. So now I say, let's transform from being Christian, to becoming Christ followers.
When you were talking about that, one of the things that hit my mind, which is to affirm what you're saying, is that it's when you change something. I went to exchange. So I go to the store and I've got shoes, they're the wrong size. I exchange them for different size shoes.
That's
but
right.
the shoes are the same size.
That's right. That's right.
But if you can say, but in this case, it's my heart is the wrong size, but it's transformed to grow larger and to embrace more of the teachings of Jesus and the love of Christ in my life and my community.
That's a beautiful
And I thought that was that's where my head went.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm with you. I mean, I thought it was a great teaching. I thought you did very well. And I love the closing story, by the way, the forgiveness part of that whole thing.
Yeah.
That was a strong solution as well. Tell us that story again.
Yeah, so Armando Galarraga was a pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. And I gave, again, some background that, you know, the MLB, Major League Baseball, is almost 150 years old. And they've played over 220,000 games. That's a lot of games. And there have only been 23 perfect games ever pitched. Ever. I mean, that's the odds are you're never going to do it. I mean, very few people. No one's done it twice in the history of the game. No pitcher's ever pitched a perfect game twice. And so Galarraga, it was June 2nd, 2010, he's retired the first 26 batters, which is unheard of. And he's got one more out to make. And one of the Indians' batters hits a ground ball. They throw him out, but Jim Joyce, who's the first base umpire, calls it safe. And ESPN replays this over and over again. And you see the ball arrive, and then the batter's foot hit the bag. And there was no instant replay. MLB didn't use replay back there to verify, a contentious call. And essentially Joyce robs him of becoming one of the very, very few pitchers to accomplish that feat. So
then the next day, Joyce transitions from first base umpire to behind the plate.
Yeah, he's home plate now.
Now he's home plate.
And before every game, the captain of the team has to bring the home plate umpire the batting order.
Right.
And so the manager for the Tigers knew Joyce was behind there, and he gives Galarraga the captain's hat that night, and Galarraga has to go and give the batting order to Joyce, the man who robbed him, who made the awful call of not giving him that perfect game. But Galarraga walks up, and all the news, everybody knows this, so newsreels are focused in, and he shakes his hand, gives him a hug, and forgives him. Yeah. And Jim Joyce breaks down, realizing his mistake, but there's no malice on the side of Galarraga. And I just thought, using that story was like a perfect setting to say, this is a picture of what it means to be a follower of Christ.
Right.
As opposed to just labeling myself a Christian.
And I remember when that happened. I'm old enough to remember that. I don't watch a lot of baseball, but that was shown so much.
Yeah.
It was very, very poignant. But what I ask, and I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know if you do either, but when you get the batting order and you're taking it to the home plate umpire and the manager sends him out, what I don't know is, hey, I want to take it out. I got something to say.
Yeah.
Or where the manager was a fatherly figure, said, I think it'd be better for you.
Yeah.
And we don't know who
initiated it.
Yeah, who instigated that. But regardless,
yeah,
what happened at home plate was a great picture of someone willing to forgive and someone willing to let their heart be transformed, which I thought the point was beautifully made. And I thought, I just summer at the lake, you knock the ball out of the park, you set the standard so high. I get to talk this weekend.
Yeah, you're up this week.
Now I got to come up with something. But I thought the cohort, the story, I just say, Troy, thank you so much for being a part of our team.
Oh.
At Suncoast, we're a place that's trying to help people understand what it means to be in relationship with God and connect with God, whom I think is not up in the clouds, but is deep within.
That's right.
And he is the one who transforms, and you did it beautifully. And I want to thank you for everything.
Appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here, man.
And we're on campus this week with about 40 to 50 teenagers.
That's right.
And you've got three in the mix there. So it's a chaotic time for us, but it's a time that we're celebrating life. Life is good for us at Suncoast.
It's amazing.
And if you've not been in a while, we invite you back.
Come on.
We'd love to have you.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you very much.
You got it.
All right.